On this episode of Hockey Inside Out, is it time for Geoff Molson to step down as team president? And are Price's glory days over? Welcome to Hockey Inside Out. I am your host, Adam Sussman, and joining me are Stu Cowan, back for the first time this year, Sportsnet's Eric Engels, and joining us back from the, where were you?
Australia.
Yeah, thank God, CBC Daybreak's Jessica Rusnak. Yeah, people were really freaking out that you were gone.
I know, I have that effect on people.
Yeah, my job was harder, so thanks for being here. Everyone's happy about that. Let's take a look at what we're going to be talking about on today's show. Number one, should Geoff Molson step down as team president and hire a president of hockey operations? Number two, is Jonathan Drouin miscast as number one center with the Canadiens? Number three, will Alex Galchenyuk ever succeed with the Habs, or should they just trade him? Number four, are Carey Price's struggles this season a sign of what's to come? And number five, can the Canadiens make the playoffs with their current roster? Let's start the show. Having two jobs is tough. Just ask Hollywood actor Tom Selleck. In addition to Hollywood acting, Tom's also an avocado farmer. But Tom, being the consummate professional that he is, puts his acting career on hold when it's avocado season so he can focus on just one of his jobs and give it his all. Now, Geoff Molson is also a guy with two jobs. He runs a billion-dollar beer conglomerate while also presiding over a professional hockey franchise. Now, I'm sure Geoff is just as passionate about both his jobs equally, but while his beer company continues to produce quality products at reasonable prices, his hockey company does not. So maybe it's time for Geoff to take a page from Tom Selleck's book and just focus on them avocados. What do you think? Should Geoff Molson step down as team president of the Montreal Canadiens?
Avocado farmer, I never knew that.
You Google a few things and,
I don't think it would be a bad idea. I think he's got, I think with Geoff Molson, part of it is that he knows hockey, thinks he knows hockey, likes hockey, but it's a different to that than being a hockey president. And I think I think it would be a good idea to bring somebody else in to be sort of a buffer between him and the general manager. I think the relationship might be too close between them the way it is now. So I think it would be a good move for him to have somebody in between. And there's enough candidates out there. You look at the way the Leafs have done it with Brendan Shanahan, who then brought in Lou Lamoriello, and I think that would work well here, but I don't think it'll happen.
I think that's the template that gets people excited and gets people thinking on this wavelength, which is that any organization that has put this in place, be it Columbus with John Davidson or Toronto, like you just mentioned, Stu, they get excited about that idea. I don't know how hands-on Geoff Molson is with the beer company. He was asked a couple weeks ago about a new brewery opening up and said that's up to the board. He doesn't have anything to do with it. As far as what his role is with the Montreal Canadiens, we don't know much about that either. I mean, other than him calling the shot on whether or not Marc Bergevin keeps his job, what are his functions? He's stayed largely, if not 99%, out of the hockey decisions. Obviously, any big ones come to his table, like trading PK Subban for Shea Weber. But ultimately, if we're looking to point fingers here, let's point them at the guy who said it's all on me. It's Marc Bergevin. So I don't know if it makes that big of a difference if it's Serge Savard instead of Geoff Molson. They're big on stability in this franchise, especially after all the turnover they had from, say, the mid-90s to the early 2000s or moving forward, or middle 2000s. It's still early. It's still early in 2012. But the bottom line is, one thing has remained true since Patrick Roy left here. He said that this organization stopped focusing on winning Stanley Cups and started focusing on just making the playoffs. And the fact that that is still the case with a general manager like Marc Bergevin, who appears to be as savvy as he is a troubling sign. And that's something that the hockey operations department in general should be focused on.
And building condos and everything else that goes into the Canadiens brand.
But even if you talk about those condos, look at all the traffic that's been happening around the Bell Center because of that, on top of everything that's been happening on the 20. But I think it's good to have someone who is a little bit separated from the situation rather than is constantly in there. There's no secret that Marc Bergevin is Geoff Molson's guy, so letting go of someone that you are friendly with and someone that you do admire becomes that much more difficult, and I think you can only do that when it becomes a situation where you have to. There's no more excuses, there's no one else you can turn to. So having someone else like a Serge Savard be that person as the president of the Canadiens, it would just create a little bit, I think, of space between Geoff Molson and the Montreal Canadiens, and maybe some decisions might be a little bit different, that what if he gets the decision, okay, we're going to trade PK Subban for Shea Weber, he might say, wait a second, I don't agree with this, but because he likes Marc Bergevin, he trusts his decision making, says, okay, let's go for it.
I think there's so many people, Stu, sorry to cut you off, I think there's so many people that believe that Marc Bergevin is too close to Geoff Molson, and that's the reason why you won't fire him. Like, Marc Bergevin, if we're assessing things honestly, he's had one terrible year here, and that's based on all the moves he made from last year's trade deadline up until now. I don't think it's going to be enough for him to lose his job, especially not in season, and I don't think it has anything to do with the relationship between him and Geoff Molson.
The thing with Molson, you mentioned the condos too. He's also involved in that, and as the owner, your job is to increase the value of the franchise, and he's done a good job at that. I think they're $1.25 billion right now. But as the president of hockey operations, your job is to win hockey games, and just that.
So you're saying he's got 3 jobs?
Not just avocado.
So does Tom Selleck, though, if you count mustache grooming.
He does. That's more of a passion, I think, that he does in his spare time. Jonathan Drouin was acquired during the summer. He's been advertised as the number 1 center that the Canadiens have been looking for years. Do you think he's been miscast in that role?
I think he was never a number 1 center, and I think that's what people have to remember. You didn't go out and get Ryan Getzlaf. That this Jonathan Drouin played center, but he was never, had that position full time before, and there was going to be growing pains with it, and there was no guarantee with that. I think people were just really holding on to the hope that he would come here and really fit that role perfectly. I don't necessarily think he's done so just yet, but I think people had too many expectations or just overestimated what he can do in that position.
I don't think the Canadiens overestimated it, because when they came out at the beginning of the season, it was kind of really, we'll try him, et cetera. We're not fully committed. We're not putting too much on him. I think the words you used were growing pains. There's going to be some. I don't think he's miscast at all. Give him a couple wingers that could actually finish plays. He'd have over 20 assists at this point in the season. I like the way he plays in the middle. I like the way he tracks back through the middle to get the puck in the defensive zone. The biggest concern with him playing in that position was the defensive side. I don't think he's lost there. I think at times when the puck gets into the Canadiens' end, there's some natural issues and some natural adjustments that need to be made. On the offensive side, he's clearly the most dynamic player that they have, and at 22 years old or 23, the sky is the limit for him.
I wonder what it would have been like if Radulov was still here playing with Drouin. Those two guys together. I think Max Pacioretty's wondering the same thing. But it's been a long time with the Canadiens that they've sort of had guys in the wrong position. I mean, you got like Saku Koivu wasn't a number 1 center. I mean, I love Saku Koivu. Patrice Brisebois wasn't a number 2 defenseman or whatever, but they always seem to have guys that are just playing, Jordy Ben now, number 2 defenseman, number 3 defenseman. He's not. I like Jordy Ben. He's a number 5, 6 defenseman. They just seem to always have guys put in roles that they're not really capable of filling, and I think that's one of the reasons the Canadiens continue to struggle. And Drouin, I think the growing pains are obviously there in the face-off circle. Is just terrible. He can't win anything. I wonder why they don't just have Andrew Shaw taking the face-offs all the time now that he's on the same line. But he can learn that, and as you know, he has a talent. Eric and I watch him in the press box, and he has skill, the way, and vision that he just needs somebody else to be there. And I think if Radulov was there, it would be a lot of fun to watch. But that didn't happen.
Alex Galchenyuk is in his 6th season. Nobody doubts his talent, but I mean, he's just so inconsistent all the time. Do you think he'll succeed somewhere else on the Canadiens? Should the Canadiens trade him?
I wrote a column saying that they should, and I think it's just I think the Canadiens are as fed up with Alex Galchenyuk as Alex Galchenyuk is fed up with the Canadiens, and I think there's guilt on both sides of this. I mean, Alex isn't an innocent victim. It just doesn't seem like it's ever going to work out, and Alex makes mistakes, and he gets punished more than other players who make similar type of mistakes. The game where he had 9 minutes of ice time, didn't get on the ice in overtime. I don't understand how. I like Thomas Plekanec. I think he fills a useful role, but I don't understand how you have him on the ice to start overtime unless it's to win the faceoff and then go to the bench. And like how you don't put Alex Galchenyuk out there. He's made for that type of hockey. I don't think it's going to work out here. And I don't know if it would work out somewhere else, but I think the odds of it working out somewhere else are better than working out here.
I think the problem with the Canadiens right now is they're shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to Alex Galchenyuk, because his value right now is super low, and you don't want to trade a guy who was drafted 3rd overall and just basically get nothing for him. So they're looking around trying to see what they could get for his value. They were talking about shopping him throughout the summertime. They didn't get what they were looking for. So now you're in a situation that it's like, what do? Do you trade him and just get something for him, or do you continue the situation where both sides are just unhappy with each other?
Well, yeah, they didn't get it. They had him as a 4th-line winger in the playoffs.
I'm unequivocal on it. You keep him. You don't trade him, and it's not just because his value is low to everybody else, or to the Canadiens in a trade. His value is high to the Canadiens if you can get him to his potential. And what I wrote just the day after Stu, is that the time has come for a different approach with this player. Talking about him as openly as they have, as a management team and as a coaching staff, has hurt him for sure. There's no question. I'm a big believer that the fans in general were somewhat delusional about this player over the 5 years leading into this one. That everything was on the organization, they mishandled him, and that mostly everything was on Alex Galchenyuk, his immaturity in the situation. Mm-hmm. At this point, though, you go back to last summer where Marc Bergevin says, he took a step back to take 2 steps forward, and they talk about how he can never play center, and Bergevin is asked at the golf tournament about it and says, I don't need, I've seen it 10 times, I don't need to see it an 11th to know that he's not a center. This guy was a near point-a-game player at center for the very small, minute period of time that they put him in that role. So I think they've done a lot to affect his confidence. It's time to start building things up, because at $4.9 million a season for the kind of game-breaking talent that he is, they need to figure out a way to get the best out of him, because his greatest value is to their franchise and not somebody else's.
He must have bus tire marks on him from the amount of times they've thrown him under the bus. But you're right, though, Eric. I mean, Alex is an immature kid. He's not a really mature guy. And they just keep whipping him and beating him. And I think, as you're right, I think it would take a different approach maybe. And I thought that approach might come with Claude Julien. I know Claude last year, after practice, that you'd see him talking with Alex, and I thought maybe that would work. I think Claude maybe just become frustrated, like Michel Therrien became frustrated, like Marc Bergevin has become frustrated.
Alex says their relationship is very good and that he's helped him a lot. But exactly what you're talking about is case in point about who the actual player is. That Michel Therrien and Claude Julien can have 2 completely different approaches from each other, but they're still generating the same result with this guy. So now it's time to go back to the drawing board, clearly.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's just a question of them not talking about him as much in the media? I mean, I think after 5 years and a little bit of a season, they would have tried everything in the book. What more can they do?
Well, we ask about him a lot, so that's.
But there's Claude Julien,
there's times that Claude Julien has been, we're going down this road
yeah.
again. Like he's fed up answering questions about Alex Galchenyuk, and especially Alex Galchenyuk playing center like that. He just it's.
But it's also the organization's fault for constantly moving him back and forth and never really giving anyone an answer. If you keep leaving the door open, then questions are going to come. And Alex Galchenyuk, too, is a guy that does read what's said about him, so he knows what Claude Julien said about him at a press conference, where maybe some other ones do a better job to avoid it, but he kind of goes looking for it.
Well, thankfully he doesn't speak French, and most of the time he's that. But in reality, what is Claude Julien supposed to do? You go back to the Calgary game of last week where the Canadiens lost in overtime. There was a clear GOAT on the play. It was Philippe Deneau. The guy who usually does the job properly, but really was lost on that play. A lot of fans blame Pacioretty. Wasn't even close to his fault on the play. When Claude Julien was asked about it, he said, I don't want to pick out a name of who I'm going to blame on this play. It happened. There was obviously a breakdown. When it comes to Alex Galchenyuk and he gets asked about him, say, I'm not going to speak individually about Alex Galchenyuk. We're a team where we all have deficiencies. We all have things that are good about our players. We're just going to move forward and continue to work with the players. Same way Alex has had a stock answer of, I'm just going to keep working on everything and put my head down and work, because he's learned just answering about specifics is not necessarily serving him well.
Aside from the 5 games when Carey Price came back from his injury and he did well and was the old Carey Price, he's been struggling all season. Do you think that's a sign of things to come?
I think it is, because it goes back to last season when he struggled before Michel Therrien got fired. And Carey Price can still be Carey Price, but I don't know if he can be Carey Price over a 25-game span consistently. I think there's going to be ups and downs with him moving forward. And the game the other night, he just looked like he did at the beginning of the season. He looked lost out there, and it's hard to explain. But I don't think that the Carey Price that we've been used to seeing in the past. As I said, we'll see him, but I don't think we'll see him all the time. I think there's going to be the good Carey and the bad Carey, and you never know which one's going to pop up. And
the problem is that he's just going to be getting older from it, and it's going to be harder to get back to that Carey Price that we saw a few years ago, where he really carried this team. But this is the problem when you're going to put all your money into your goaltender. And I remember Marc Bergevin always said, we'll see how it goes. They're the only team in the NHL that has their highest paid player in that goalie position, that this could possibly come back and really hurt the Canadiens.
I'm not so sure it will. I believe Carey Price is the best goaltender in the world. I don't think anything has changed that, aside from the fact that the team in front of him gives him less of a margin for error than he's even had over the last 5 years of building up that reputation. And you put a good team in front of him, I think you'll see the guy that you deserve to see. I think most times you're going to see that guy, even though that hasn't been the case, as you mentioned this year, Adam. The injuries are a big concern, but ultimately, you have the best player in the world at a given position. You don't let them go to market or trade them. Maybe you consider that if you had won a couple championships beforehand. But, when Marc Bergevin says he's a guy who could get you all the way there, if there is one guy who could actually do it, it might be him. It's a really risky bet to make.
Especially the defense.
The salary cap is going up. When you look at the percentage of salary cap space that Price's new contract will actually snatch up, it's not as bad as some of the other players around the league. And you look also around the league, a lot of teams have as much money invested in 2 goalies as the Canadiens have in 1, and they don't need to when they have Carey Price playing at his best. And I believe that's the guy you're going to see for most of his career moving forward. He's that good.
Well, I was thinking it was Gump Wurzler who once said they asked him which team gives you the biggest problems, and he said the Canadiens when he was playing with the Canadiens. I think there's some nights where that's the case with Carey with the defense in front of him. But again, I think the consistency with him going forward will become an issue.
Yeah, Carey Price has played in front of behind some really bad teams before. This isn't the first time a team is struggling, that he's played on.
This might be the worst one. This might be the
yeah,
worst.
but it seems a little different this year. He's struggling more since he got good and.
Andre Markov's gone. You look at the defense that have left over the last couple of years. I think that's a big reason for it. The defense he's playing in front of now is nothing like what it was, even though Marc Bergevin said it's better than it was last season.
That's a lie.
Yeah.
Do you think the Canadiens
Fake news.
Do you think the Habs can make the playoffs with their current roster?
Does the $9 million count as a roster player?
Yeah.
That guy's having a bad year. He hasn't had any points yet.
Casper the Ghost.
No points yet. I don't think so. I think it's going to be interesting to see. They play New Jersey here Thursday night, then they play their next 7 games on the road. And how much longer can they allow it to go like this? They're a 500 team. You look at, they're 24th in offense, 25th in defense, 22nd in power play. They're in the 20s and everything. There's no highlight. There's nothing they're really good at. And I don't know how much longer they can just allow it to go like this without doing something.
What can they do?
But this is what I'm hoping, that they realize, okay, it's out of reach. We're not making the playoffs. Let's start focusing for next year and starting putting things in place, rather than trying to keep that hope alive by maybe going on another win streak of 5 games and constantly trying to battle into the playoff picture. Just realize this is not going to happen. Or if you do get into the playoffs and you get bounced in 4 games, is that even better? I would rather you decide it's not happening and start making moves for the future that will help you long term.
I think every fan, at least the majority of them, look at it the same way Jess just laid it out. From a management perspective, from a team perspective, you stay as competitive as you can. These guys, if there's one thing that they've said consistently since Bergevin has been in place, is once you make it to the playoffs, anything can happen. The Ottawa Senators proved that last year. The Nashville Predators, who were waffling all season long and ended up in the 8th spot and went to the Stanley Cup final and came within 2 games of winning it, proved that last year. Is it a stretch? For sure. I think, I was well prepared for this answer. I've been asked this question about 100 times in the last couple weeks. There's a kind of a drop-dead date here. You get to January 15th, and if you're under 500 and nowhere near the playoff picture, it becomes very easy to decide which direction you're going in. But so long as the Canadiens are playing in the worst division in hockey, they have a chance to make it into the playoffs and avoid playing one of the top 2 teams in the conference in the first round. So we're not there yet, although all signs point to the direction that Jess just mentioned as being probably the right avenue to take.
I think it's the team they need to catch are the Bruins, who I believe still have 4 games in hand. And in goal differential, the Bruins are +3, +4. The Canes are -14, minus something like that. So it's not going to be easy to catch the Bruins for the 3rd spot in that division.
Don't underestimate how bad the Bruins can be.
Yeah.
This whole division is filled with teams that are remarkably average, if not below it.
The other concern is the Canadiens are going into the game against New Jersey. They're 1 game above 500 at home. They can't win at home, and that's this 5-game homestand that they have with the 5th game against New Jersey. They need to win that to finish 500 on the homestand. This was a stretch in the schedule that they needed to gain ground. They needed to win 4 of these 5 games, and they just haven't done it.
Okay. Well, that is our show. We want to thank the panel. Thank you, Stu. Thank God you're back, Jess. Eric, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. And we want to thank you at home for watching. Leave comments in the comment section below, whether it's on the Gazette or on YouTube, because we want to know what you thought about what we discussed today. I'm Adam Susser, and I'll see you next Thursday.